bank kind of period is going to require, but especially local banks. So if you can proactively get one created and stay on top of it, I think in the long run that will save you a ton of time.
And again, that's kind of universal. You have a standard template that you continue to utilize with these local banks, and they accept that and then move forward, right? So that whole process in general, to fill out an Excel sheet and submit, and they say, okay, you're approved for $1 million, was mind-blowing to me. Just the fact that didn't have to go down the rabbit hole with all these individuals, all that, Wells Fargo, which probably had already set up 10 other bank accounts without me knowing.
Yeah, very true, buddy.
Shout out.
Yeah. Thank you, Wells Fargo.
Yeah, not going to be one of our sponsors.
No.
There he is.
Here we are.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Mark.
Hey.
Welcome.
What's your name again?
Armando.
Hey, nice to meet you, buddy.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't say I was gonna say it's a pleasure, but that'd be a total lie. And since I don't know you, I don't want to lie to you. So
would be nice, I don't like liars.
You don't?
Funny story about Armando, actually.
You know Armando?
Yeah. Oh, it's like an alter ego of myself. I was traveled around South America for 3 months, and first couple days I was there, they were asking me my name, ¿Cómo te llamas?
And you forgot your name.
And I would say Adam, and they'd say Adam. It's not a common name there. So eventually it just became, me llamo Armando. And it was just kind of this, it just really rolled off the tongue, almost like an alter ego of myself. And for the rest of that trip, and still to this day, clearly, because I'm introducing myself as Armando.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was Armando.
Is he a good person or not?
Oh, he's a wonderful person.
Is
he's the best character you'd ever want.
Yeah.
Happy-go-lucky, great dancer.
Says who?
I think, pretty much everybody
says Adam.
Yeah. You ever seen The Birdie?
No.
Oh, I'll show you sometime.
How about you show everybody right now? We have tens of watchers right now. Listeners, we're live streaming, by the way, and we have lots of people.
Yeah.
No, actually, no, we're not live streaming. I don't know how to do that.
Maybe play a jam.
We could. Yeah, we just shut off the music.
Oh, okay.
Mistake, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you messed that up.
Another common place.
Absolutely. So Armando, topic of the day is lending.
Okay.
Super exciting, right?
Yeah.
Talking banks and finances, and so we thought we would drop this about what is the biggest benefits or differences, I should say, between working with a national bank on lending, national banks like a Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, versus working with local, more regional banks that are within the states that you're investing in. So this one is going to be episode's going to be directed more towards you, since you have experience on both sides. For me, I've always been kind of a local bank type of guy. Growing up, my dad, real estate developer, got financing from local banks, Wahoo, Nebraska. It was literally a handshake type deal, and they would give him, at least on my head, they'd give him millions of dollars. And I think it was in reality where he had projects lined up, developments lined up. It's like, hey, yeah, we'll fund that, and we'll get around to the paperwork. We'll get paperwork signed for sure, but handshake type of deal. So that was always my experience growing up was, hey, local banks, that's the way to go, the relationships, versus you coming in was more from a national bank perspective. And then the more we got involved together, you start to realize the other side of working with a local bank. So we are going to be asking you some questions today, bud. You ready?
Hey, bring it on, my friend.
Are you nervous?
Bring it on.
We got a lot of people watching right now.
Yeah, no.
Nervous?
Oh, Taylor.
Okay, so to start off with, in your experience, what's been some of the differences in requirements on financing investment properties when it comes to a local bank versus a national bank? And again, when we say local bank, maybe kind of express or define that a little bit more.
Sure, yeah. And you're right. Up until working with you, I was working with, kind of the bigger banks, right? You end up, I think naturally you're just looking for a loan, you find good rates, Oftentimes that's kind of through those bigger banks.
You're rate shopping.
Yeah, you're rate shopping 100%. And you laughed at me. And it's like, hey, bozo, there's a whole new world out there.
I was laughing because you're goofy looking.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I was laughing because your bad decisions.
So I think, for starters, it's a breakdown of primary residence versus investment. So there are different requirements between primary and investment. You'll get set through the ringer on pretty much all lending on your primary house these days. Maybe 2007, 2008, you could get no income loans. They were handed out with piece of paper, right? You say, oh, I make this much and here's a loan. And then
I was giving those loans out as a mortgage broker back in the day. And
so you caused the crash.
It was pretty much me. Yeah. Me and a couple of buddies caused a national crash, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, we call them no doc loans.
Yeah.
You filled out an application, and whatever you put on the application, we took your word for it. And when I say we took your word for it, because we're brokers, we just found a lender that would fund the loan. So the lender took your word for it, and that was it. They'd give you hundreds of thousands of dollars based on what you said on the app and didn't verify anything.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, again, where it's fundamentally different. We talk about, oh, there's recession coming, or we are in a recession now at this point, but fundamentally loans are different. They're validating more things like that.
Yeah.
So I don't see that there's going to be a crash like we saw in 2008. But anyway, so back to the point of primary versus investment was really that we're going to talk more on the investment piece. So, and then specific to investment, local versus national banks. So my experience with places like B of A and Wells Fargo, and I'm getting, a loan through them, and they ask for everything. I mean, it is everything under the sun, all the documentation. It's a full-time job to get all of this in place. I mean, they're asking everything from what feels like, your mom's dog walker's sister's information sort of thing. That's like, man, what do you care that about? But so you just get through the ringer, and he was laughing at me one of the days because I'm complaining to him, bitching about all these things that I have to provide, or why do they care? Why does it matter? Whatever. If I have the money, then, I should be able to get the loan. And so, going through all of these, and then on the flip side, when we go to buy our first investment property, work through a local bank, and we got a loan from submitting our personal financial statements, which is essentially an Excel sheet of all your data, all your information. And they look at that and say, okay, you're approved for $1 million at that point.
Let's pause really quick. I think it's need to take a second and reiterate the personal financial statement is super important to have and stay on top of, because again, working with local banks like you're just going into, that's the main document that they look at. They'll ask for sometimes other financials depending on what they're seeing, but a personal financial document from the get-go is something that any bank kind of period is going to require, but especially local banks. So if you can proactively get one created and stay on top of it, I think in the long run that will save you a ton of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's kind of universal. You have a standard template that you continue to utilize with these local banks, and they accept that and then move forward, right? So that whole process in general, to fill out an Excel sheet and submit, and they say, okay, you're approved for $1 million, was mind-blowing to me. Just the fact that didn't have to go down the rabbit hole with all these individuals, all that, Wells Fargo, which probably had already set up 10 other bank accounts without me knowing.
Yeah, very true, buddy.
Shout out.
Yeah. Thank you, Wells Fargo.
Yeah, not going to be one of our sponsors.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So, that whole process in general. So, number one of just efficiency and effectiveness of getting a loan was a huge burden off our backs. I mean, that was amazing. And then, not only they're looking at us as lending to us, but the other big piece of that's important is they're looking at how we're underwriting the deal, what we see with the property. They're underwriting the deal itself, looking at the property as a business.
Yeah, if they want to take it back, and if they did take it back, they'd be comfortable knowing that they could sell it and get their money back and usually make a little bit of money. But yeah, they're definitely looking for the right deals and the right operators. They're doing make sense stuff.
Yeah.
Versus big banks that are just following a 20-page guideline checklist of shit that they got to check off. There's been so many times, like even back in the days when I was doing lending, where deals made sense. These people are buying properties for significantly below market, killer income, things like that. But because out of this 50-point checklist, they couldn't check off 2 little boxes, they couldn't get a loan, and it made 0 sense. So working with local banks, you definitely have that flexibility of, as long as you know what you're doing and you can prove that and the deal makes sense. That's the 2 main things that these guys look for, and they're not just looking to check off boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it becomes back to that relationship lending. In the end, are Mark and Adam going to default on us? I mean, really, that's the question that they have. They get into something called a loan committee, which could be as small as, I've seen it as 3 people.
3 people, yeah.
And it could be larger, but I haven't seen it larger than 5, 6 people sort of thing. It's a small group, usually the executives of a small branch at a local bank, and they all get together on a weekly basis, look at deals and say yay, nay.
And that's literally it.
That's it. That's the decision. It's made. It's right there, and there you go.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously what we had talked about before, when you have the bigger banks, or they're selling off into Fannie Freddie sort of style, you're going to go through more of that sort of style of hard requirements, all these check boxes, all these details.
Yeah. I think when you first got a loan through a local bank, or we first got a loan, or I got a loan with you through a local bank, I think it was, and you said it to me, really eye-opening for you, that it's not about rate shopping. You always want to be cautious about rate, cost, all that stuff. That's definitely goes into deals, but relationships far outweigh rates and fees.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Because the doors that it can open, if you think about it, if you have that lending partner, pieces of the puzzle within real estate in general, lending is a huge piece of that. So if they're starting to open doors and become more lenient on terms, moving from 25% down all the way down to 10% down to something called guidance line that you'll touch on in a little bit here, but that is just opening up the room of exploration, really, the room for growth, room for scaling. And so we've tapped into these local banks. One of the big pivotal pieces of it is things like lines of credit. So, we'll close on a property, we'll rehab, and then we'll refinance, and either we'll pull all cash out at that point, or we'll open a line of credit against it that we can tap into the equity of the property. And then from that, we can decide, okay, I'll tap into that line of credit and go buy another property. But the beauty of the line of credit is that you're not paying interest, you're not taking it all at once and then waiting for the time to utilize it. You have the equity there that you can tap into.
Yeah.
And then when you find that deal, you can act immediately.
Yeah.
And
game changer.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
And you had described it early on, actually, in real estate investing, was this idea of building a moat. So, you have your castle, and you want a moat around you to be able to protect it. And that, to me, is kind of the lines of credit. You want access to cash, but you don't want to be sitting on $100K, $200K, $1 million, whatever that is, because you want to go leverage it. But having that, if something, a rainy day that pops up, or new investment opportunity.
Absolutely.
We happen to have an addiction for buying properties.
So it's bad.
Yeah.
It's good though.
It is. It's always exciting, but it's an addiction. So, having that access to it that you don't see as often in national banks. They will offer you lines of credit, but you go through more challenges, more difficulties. Some will even enforce that you provide receipts and what you want to do, and it's only related to that property that they want you to utilize the line of credit.
Yeah.
Whereas local banks are saying, okay, that's your line of credit. It's tapping into the equity. You can use it how you want.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we happen to want to maybe go buy it properly.
Yeah.
Right?
And big banks, dude, you're just a number with those guys. They don't care about the relationship. They don't care that you've been with them for 10 years and you have all your bank accounts with them, things like that. They honestly, they don't care. Again, they're going off that checklist that as long as you can check these boxes off, you can get financing. Versus local banks, it's really relationship. It's like, oh yeah, you have been with us for 10 years. You've made all your loan payments on time. Yeah. You do have additional deposit accounts with us. So yeah, we're willing to go out and give you lines of credits and guidance lines and whatnot to really help you facilitate buying more properties. Because at the end of the day, with these local banks, a lot of local banks out there depend on region of the United States you're in. Like, for example, in Nebraska, a lot of small banks have agricultural money. A lot of rural communities, a lot of farmers putting money into the banks, and these banks are actively looking for good operators, people that know what they're doing. They have confidence in giving loans out, knowing that you're going to perform. So yeah, a big thing is tapping into these banks that are hungry to lend money out. They need to. They have a lot of deposits, and whole point of being a bank is getting deposits in and lending money out and making that little arbitrage.
Yeah, they gotta exercise that cash somewhere.
Absolutely.
So they take that in. What do they go do with it?
Yeah.
And smaller banks there, where are they going to go utilize that cash? They do go back into agriculture, things like that, but they also want to diversify.
Absolutely.
They don't want to be stuck in a specific market. And then the additional piece of this is you're also benefiting them significantly.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And a Wells Fargo, a B of A, you're just a number. You made the bank $100K, $200K, $1 million, whatever that is.
It's a few bucks.
Nothing.
It's like a few bucks to them. They don't care.
Yeah. Whereas a small bank that is impactful, you are a customer and they treat you that way.
Yeah.
And even if the other piece of that as well is just getting access to individuals. If we're having a challenge with something on their online portal, or hey, I need this, or whatever the case may be, you just pick up the phone, call somebody, and it's done immediately. You try that with B of A or Wells Fargo, you go,
oh my God, you go overseas to their customer service that doesn't know what they're doing, and no matter what, you got to speak to a manager just to get your password reset so you can access your account.
Yeah,
it's asinine.
We're gonna bring up. I went overseas when I was doing that 3 months in South America, and we were trying to close on a property, and I had to go to a embassy there in Ecuador. I couldn't get an appointment. I was in Colombia. I couldn't get one in Colombia at the embassy. They required that bank required me to have an embassy notary. I couldn't go to any of the gazillion notarias down the street. Yeah. So I had to fly into a new country, change my trip, change my travel plan to close on this property because of those requirements at the bank. Whereas if we were working with the relationship with the small banks that we have, it would have been a phone call and say, look, I can't transfer from here to here at this time frame or whatever, but hey, can I do this with you guys? And it would have been yes, and it would have been done. I would have had to fly to a new country.
Nuts. It's wild. Yeah, there's sometimes just recently had with one of the banks that we get quite a bit of financing through, just did a few refis with them, and being down in Arizona and they're back in Nebraska. Obviously you got to sign documents, and they need those documents back. Once they get the documents, they'll fund the loan. But because again, they're a smaller bank, you have that relationship with them. I was able to just take pictures of these loan documents and say, hey, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I was able to take pictures of the loan documents, text them to the banker. He looked at me and said, okay, we're good to fund. And I just overnighted the docs, and that trust that they have in you and the trust that you have in them goes a long way, especially when you're trying to continue to build your rental portfolio, whatever business you're fixing flips, whatever you're doing. It goes a long, long, long ways.
It does. You want to operate your business, right?
Yeah.
You want to focus your time, energy where it's best suited. Yeah. You don't want to go down a rabbit hole of trying to find some document that is required by Wells Fargo or wherever, that you're like, I don't even know where the heck this is, or any of these. Oh, hey, you transferred this one money's $100 into another account. What's the deal with the other account? What's going on? Why do you care?
Yeah, it kind of makes me think. Again, we're filming this in your Airbnb that you have, and I remember some of your experiences trying to get initial financing on this guy because it's in San Diego. A lot of our local relationships are back in Nebraska. So you trying to get financing on this, there was the time, I was going to say a few times, I think you did go with it through a few lenders. But one of the times where, again, going through that traditional process, you're given document after document. They're asking for the same documents over that you've already sent. You guys send them 3 or 4 times. Yeah. And then you spend many, many hours, like you mentioned, on providing them documents over the course of 2 or 3 weeks. And then they just come back at the end and be like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, we can't do this because of this stupid reason. So now all of a sudden you're back at square one after many, many hours and many weeks. And like for this house, for example, there's a deadline you have to close by. So now all of a sudden you start to scramble to figure out, okay, one, who I can go to this late in the game. I've got to close on this in a week, 2 weeks, whatever that was. Luckily, you're able to get things worked out with the seller, and he was somewhat accommodating.
I paid for it though.
You definitely paid for it.
It was free. Next week I paid $4,000 to extend whatever. I think to extend closing by a week.
So let's give a shout out to that banker that did that. Yeah. Maybe they can not sponsor us.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun.
Got you good, buddy.
And even the one that I closed on all of a sudden came down at the end, and they said, okay, yeah, actually we're also going to need 9 months of liquid capital. And that to me is just obnoxious. It's silly. It doesn't make any sense.
It's silly.
So you're telling me that in this short-term rental, I'm not going to get any income for the next 9 months. So I have to have 9 months of sitting cash waiting, just sitting there. Why would I ever have that?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me. If I have that much cash sitting there, I'm going to go put it to work.
Kind of spend it, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So, invest it, really spend it, meaning invest it. So that was obnoxious and didn't make it, really, when you go to the root of it, what was so annoying to it was that it doesn't make any sense.
0 cents.
Let's use some logic here and talk about it. So yeah, it's been a learning lesson for sure, and a huge eye-opener, right? It made me realize of the other side of the fence, that there is this way, there is access to capital without having to go through this massive pain of working with the big banks.
Yeah, and for some reason you still went through it, even though I told you, I was like, hey, dude, look for some local bank. Obviously, you went through local banks back in Nebraska. You saw how easy it was. Do the same thing here in San Diego. And for some reason, you just kept going through these big banks.
Yeah, well,
you're not crime, bro.
Resident that's next door had to go through kind of that rabbit hole of a lot of
true. I guess true. Yeah.
Here, I got shafted.
You're a knucklehead, bro.
Hey, I closed. It worked out.
Yeah, everything's all good.
Happy with things, but
absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
If there was a way to go back,
yeah.
Learn and live.
Yeah,
live and learn.
Yeah, so I think with local banks, another really big benefit of them is just, again, that relationship, doing the make sense stuff and kind of getting creative with you when you need to get creative. And going back to the comment you made earlier, I made earlier too, they're looking for good operators, so they're there to try to support you as much as they can, so they can continue to give you money and you can continue to perform. They can continue to give interest back to their depositors and other investors and whatnot. Yeah.
It's a symbiotic relationship, which is really how any good partnership, business relationship ends up being, right?
That's good to reference it as a partnership, because it is a partnership for sure.
It is, right? And that's what you want. You want those long-term relationships that you're calling the person and they're calling you and saying, hey, let's go and do another deal. Let's make it happen. You made me a bunch of money. I made you a bunch of money. Yeah. Let's go do that again. And that was fun.
Yeah. And it's, after a while, it gets to the point again, they're there to support you. And there's different loans out there. One that we've taken advantage of recently, called different things at different banks, but guidance lines, basically, where they say, you've proved yourself to us. We've had this relationship for a while now. Now you are pre-approved for whatever, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, whatever that is.
Yeah.
You're pre-approved for it. All you need to do is tell us the address, provide the purchase contract, tell us the date you need to close, at least give us 4 or 5 days for us to get paperwork together. But as long as you provide us the paperwork, you're good to go, and you provide the down payment. So that's been a really big catalyst the last few years, especially for me personally, is to, one, take that line of credit that you've got. So you buy a property, like you mentioned earlier, you fix it up, you refinance it, you get a tenant in there, then you refinance it, either pull cash out or get a line of credit on it when you refinance it. And then after a while, you do that to so many properties, you build up lines of credits and whatnot. Then you can take that line of credit, you get your guidance line. Oftentimes with guidance lines, again, you're pre-approved up to a certain amount. All you got to do is bring in the down payment. Down payments can vary 10%, 20%, whatever it is. But you bring in that 10% with your line of credit. So now all of a sudden you're buying properties with zero of your money, and that's really where it starts to snowball, because then you're buying these properties with not your own money. Do the same thing, you renovate it, get it rented out, refinance that guy, get your money back, and do it all over. And that's what really will start to escalate you being able to build up a portfolio with very limited money out of your pocket.
Yeah, it's that exponential growth.
Yeah.
So, you're leveraging existing business, your existing real estate to go buy other real estate.
Yeah.
And it just, like you said, that snowball effect is incredible. It doesn't take much before all of a sudden you're realizing these gains, and then it just only gets bigger, and you can leverage more. You have a bigger property that right now we're taking down a $6.3 million asset that now we can tap into that equity and go buy something even bigger, right? It just magnifies on itself.
It's the secret sauce.
It is.
It's not the secret sauce on the Big Mac, which everybody knows is Thousand Island, common sense. This is the
Whoa.
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Come on, you knew that. I hope you knew that. I hope you knew that.
Well,
So secret sauce in real estate.
Yeah.
You just did it. Good job, bud. Okay, so what would be, out of all this, what's your biggest takeaway with your experience on working with big, stupid national banks versus local banks that know you and love you and think you're special?
Yeah. And I'd like to say listen to Mark and go local, but I don't want to give him the credit on this.
Always listen to me.
Yeah, man, just it really was an eye-opener. And just you hear about it in books, podcasts, whatever, we're talking about it today, but really just seeing it firsthand for myself was a game changer. It's been a substantial impact to us. Hearing what you've been talking about with these guidance lines is honestly just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't have to go through all of these requirements, all of these details. It's, hey, we trust you. We know that you're going to do well for us, and we're here to support you. Let's go make some money together. So that's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
Sure, go find some local banks, build those relationships. It takes time. All relationships do.
Yeah.
So
and you don't need a rate shop. You need to be rate cautious for sure. Everybody, you're going to find out when you're working with local banks, they're competing with each other. So they're all kind of within the same realm. It's just really who you feel most comfortable with and who you think you can really grow with in the long term.
Absolutely. Don't say at the last time, oh yeah, I'm approved with you guys. Actually, I just found this half point or quarter of a point cheaper over here.
Don't be a douche is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Episode 608.
There it is, buddy.